assessment, a bit of an assessment. Can we move forward, Leonard? Yes. This is just self-calibration. You can answer it in your own way. You can also like write it in the chat, in the chat box. But I'd like you to kind of self-calibrate. In a range of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how do you think? How high is yours in terms of positive or winning attitude? So maybe if you are saying that, you know, I am such a fighter, I go for anything, I'm so resilient, I'm tenacious, I go back and forth, whatever happens, I keep my positive attitude. So that could be a 10. Oh yeah, I could get discouraged many times, but you know, I try to plod on, etc., etc. So I may be on a 6 or 7. So the important thing is that you already at this point begin to calibrate. Am I the type that is finding it easy to really have a positive attitude? Or do I struggle in the process? Can you please answer that? Because later on, I'd like to see if you can even work on and improve on that. Thank you. So moving forward, I also have another question that I'd like you just to ask yourself as part of our initial interaction. And this is something that you might already validate in your own experiences. So if you, for example, meet somebody, we have a natural interaction with that person vibrationally. So we would say, what is this person, you know, trying to project about himself? So if he's smiling and he's friendly, right away, what could happen is that we feel warm towards this person. Right away, we begin to also relax with this person. So that is the reason why the attitude of anyone, your attitude, my attitude, definitely could right away produce certain kind of reaction in people around us. What is a good attitude for you? Can you write it down? Oh, it could be as simple as I mentioned, graciousness, respectfulness, or casualness, a relaxed attitude. And then what's the immediate reaction? You also could resonate with that person. But take it another level. And this time, if you meet anybody that seems to have like a bad attitude, usually what do you notice first? Maybe this person is not even smiling, not even looking at you, or he's just stern looking, or he's so sad looking. Bad attitude could right away affect something in us. And probably you would say, I avoided that person. I didn't like to really like interact with that person because I didn't want that to rub off on me. So in short, we, without knowing it, we get affected right away by the kind of attitude that we imbibe or we notice or we observe around us. But first of all, it's also important that we get affected in our attitude if we do not know exactly what kind of attitude we want to constantly have in our life. So that attitude is actually a choice we make. It's something that we embrace as ours, or value as our own. So let's move on now that we are now called upon, you especially in Joy Nostalg. Can we just move forward to the depths in Christude right now? The attitude that is that of Christ, Christude. You have your definition, and later on I'll go back to that. But I'd just like at this point, just to say that what is it that we look at Christ for? Was his main attitude in life. He came here, he was God, he became man. And why was he called Christ in the first place? Christ or Christus means the anointed one. Somebody who is set apart for a special, maybe like a calling. And so when we say you and I are also supposed to embrace Christude, we have to believe that you and I had also been anointed and set apart for a particular purpose on this earth. And what are we supposed to do as we move on, next slide please, is that we are actually invited. And scriptures have a lot of this, that we are constantly invited to what? In Romans 13:14, for example, we are asked to clothe ourselves with the Lord Jesus Christ himself. As though we are putting on our own clothes, we also have to put on Christ. There are times that we just fake it because we don't know really what's the attitude of Christ, but it's important that we can even put it on. What do I want to put on? Maybe God's or Christ's graciousness, or maybe Christ's own mercy and compassion, or maybe it's his cheerfulness, or it's just his loving patience. So it's something that we can start with. What is it that we put on as an attitude of Christ? Even like when we dressing up, I would do that, for example, in the morning, as I'm dressing up, or I'm just like, going about the beginning of my day. I usually have an hour of prayer. And part of that is really mentalizing myself. What would I put on of Christ today? Sometimes it's just simply maybe patience, because it's so hard to walk around and there's so many things that I need to be patient with. There are a lot of demands on me. Or it could be another thing, because this has to be like the setting of our mind, the setting of our heart, and the setting of our spirit. Moving forward, there are other, like also like Colossians, for example, another scripture passage that also sets us to really put on the mind of Christ by setting them on higher things that are above. Meaning to say, what are those higher things that we're supposed to talk about? I think you heard your surgeon saying that many times we have to go above the circumstances, and we have to go and thrive despite the demands of whatever is right now really such a challenge for us. Not to give up. Those are some of the things that we can consider are things of above, higher than what is usually demanded of us. Next, please. So aside from that, there are so many others that we can actually say that we are called upon. St. Peter said this: gird your loins with of your mind. Gird your loins of your mind. This is what we mean by living with the mind of Christ. So there's so many other things that we are called upon to do. And all of these will, of course, help us to live within the mind of Christ. And you and I have our own specialty. Like you, for example, could be like much attracted to one of the traits or one of the qualities of Christ than the other. It's enough that you start with those things. Okay. So moving on, when we speak about what is it that we need to do, why do we have to put on the qualities of Christ? As in, I'm sure you have heard so many times spoken of when we talk about success, when we talk about human potentials, when we talk about even like education, we need to first and foremost understand that oftentimes we get it wrong. We start with thinking, if only I have money, if only I have whatever qualities, if only I have this kind of a wife, or if only I have this kind of a business. Right away, we want to start thinking that if we have things, then maybe we can do better and become a better person. But the truth about the be, do, have principle is we are first and foremost supposed to be before we can even do and have the skills to do it. And therefore, then we produce the byproduct of our being and doing, which is having. And this is the way it is when we speak about Christude, putting on the very qualities of Christ, the very character and attitudes of Christ. And Zig Ziglar has said this: you first have to be. If you want to have things that you would like, if you want to be happy, you want to enjoy joy and relaxation, then you have to believe that you are a person capable of being happy. So begin to be happy in your own way. And then if you are beginning to have a disposition or an attitude of happiness, then you begin to do things happily and joyfully, with patiently, and all the other virtues would follow. And then if you are constantly in that state, we call it of being and doing, then it will come to you. Becoming will come in as a byproduct, as a result of that. So being, doing, having starts with first and foremost being ourselves. Then we can have what we aspire to have, not the other way around, not the other way around. And so probably that's a challenge for us to really, like when we speak, to talk about why is it that it's hard for me sometimes to get what I want or have. It's maybe because I have not learned yet to be who I can be myself. So in the biblical beatitudes, the beatitudes, we cannot have time enough to express probably what are the depths of the principles and the teachings and the concepts in the beatitudes. But we know, can you move to the next slide, please? that in the Beatitudes, the biblical Beatitudes, are found the most mind-shifting, consciousness-shifting teachings of Jesus himself in scriptures. Blessed are the poor, blessed are those who love justice, blessed are those who are compassionate, blessed are those who are peacemakers, blessed are those who do good to others. So these are all the most important attitudes that could have been developed by anyone who would like to be Christ-like, in a sense. And so again, we go to being Christ. What are those beatitudes of Christ? Then we begin to do as he did by becoming precisely the kind of person he was. Then we will learn the skills and the qualities to do as he did. And then we have Christ. It's like, we have the capacity to be Christ wherever we are, and create the fruits of the Spirit that come with being in Christ Jude. So with this, let me just go to the theological grounding of your very well, I had to say this, Sir June, you have said it so well in your own definition of Christ Jude. I will not read it again, but I have it there for the next stage, the next slide, please. I will not read it because Joy read this earlier on, but I would like to have a commentary on it very, very quickly based on scripture. So Lona, can we go to the next, please? I chose this particular picture because we're not very used to even thinking or believing that Jesus was really such a joyful person. In fact, when he was born, it was joy to the world, really. And he was cause for joy for so many. The pictures that probably we have of Jesus depicted him as a very serious guy, but he had so much joy overflowing. He was always grateful, was always like saying, blessed be Father, thank you, Father, all that. And that can only come from a person, from a heart that's full of joy. So I love this. Even Pope Francis commented on this so many times because he would like to really have us embrace that joyful Jesus, the Jesus that was full of love and joy. And that's why I wanted that particular picture to be a description. It's like a visual description of your own Christ Jude. So in Christ Jude, can we turn to the next one, please? There are 9 that I picked up, 9 actually concepts that your Sir June had so crafted into that definition of Christ Jude. Authentic choice. You have to be very, very genuine in making a choice. Choice making seems to be very important for the Joy Nostalg's family. Why? Because every day is a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday where joyfully you are choosing authentic choice every day. Then the second one is Christ-like in spirit. So it's a spirit of Christ. And then the third one is like servanthood, being in the spirit of service. The fourth one, these are very deep concepts in theology and actually in spirituality, is the sense of stewardship. You are dispensers of the good that God has given. I will comment and just give you a little bit of this later on. Then compassion, that is so underlining even in the very life of Christ, not only in thoughts, but even in your own feeling. Because you can be, very probably compassionate to others, but we don't do anything about it. We don't feel strongly to really be of help. So both of these have to be present. Thoughts, yes, but also feelings. Then radiating love and light. That is something that just defines Jesus. I'm the light of the world, And he himself, this love, incarnate. And then the other attitude that I like in this is also celebrating and witnessing. It's not enough that you live it, but you have to really celebrate and witness to it. Whenever you see it, not only in yourself, but also when you see it in others. The 8 is the responding to God's call and his will. It's a constant call that we have to constantly also become. So we could not get it all at once. We have to constantly grow into Christ. And that's why it's a constant, responding to the call. And then underlying all of this, joyfully. I love that. Because as long as we can be joyful, that's the first trait that people would see in a very positive attitude type of personality. Because if we are not joyful, if we are not lighthearted, nobody could even like think that we have the right or the positive or the winning attitude. So let's take a look at all of these very quickly. Can you go to the next one, please? So for authentic choice, it's there. I won't discuss everything because there is so much, but just to show you that in Philippians, we are asked to keep our own thoughts continually fixed on what is genuine, what is authentic, what is real, what is honorable. And so exactly what you talk about, I heard that Nadine spoke about also like focus. I also heard your surgeon spoke about focus. Yes, we need to have a focus because we are so many times so scattered. We are so kind of overthinking all the time. And we only need to really focus on something that is genuinely true for us and true for us at that moment. What is it that we need? What is it that we aspire to have? What do we want to happen in our life? So that's focusing on what is genuinely true. Next, please. So we can also like be authentic in the sense that we constantly choose ourselves to be of service. So together with authentic choice is that genuinely, next please, Leonard, that we have to actually grow constant. We're still in the first one though. Authentic choice. The second half is that we are choosing for ourselves. No? We choose to be what? If you have been called to be in Joy Nostalg, it is not by chance that you are there. Actually, you have been called, whether you actually heard a voice or not. But this particular company has attracted you and you've stayed on. So these are indicators that you have chosen to serve through this particular company. And that's something that is like part of what you have been meant to be. Okay, number 2, Christ-like in spirit. So here I have just a couple of other scripture passages. We are growing into Christ in every way possible. So that means to say that the calling to be really Christ-like is a day-to-day. It's an invitation. It doesn't have to be like everything about Christ. You have just to take note. What is it that is so attractive about you? If you're called to be like a humorous person, maybe that is your gift. That is the kind of Christ manifestation that you're supposed to be showing to this world. Or maybe you are known for your industry. You're so masipag, so maybe that's really the manifestation of Christ's spirit that you need to like live out. If you are the type who's so patient and understanding, that is also your Christ-likeness in spirit. So we don't have to look anywhere else, but whatever you already have, it's important that you live it out as best you could. Next, please. So we have other things that, the Spirit of Christ, is in us when we constantly do that which brings his own presence felt wherever we are, both in our lives and also in other people's lives. So let's turn to servanthood. This is something that is so amazing. When you speak about servanthood, that not that we are servants now, we don't really have servants, we have helpers, we have people who make things easier for us. But this is more the capacity of the Spirit to really be of service, the readiness to be of service. And look at you. I heard surgeons mentioning that he was on your case so that you can work at home, as though you have to be kind of like told over and over again, it's okay to stay at home. It's okay to work from home, basically, with all the challenges it has. So, and this is because I guess so many of you really would like to do what you need to do. It's like to serve in whatever capacity you have. And that's a wonderful attitude. And servanthood doesn't mean that, you're slaving yourself up for others, but it's like you're giving the best you can wherever you may be. And I know that you guys, so many of you are actually here because you're giving the best that you can. And that's why you're staying on, because, there's so much more you can still give. And that is servanthood, being at the service of others. And I'm glad I hear that constantly being mentioned. Okay, moving on. So that servanthood can also be, as in the case of Mark here. Mark has some passage there. He said, even those that are great among you, you have to start from those that are the heads or the leaders and all that. As in Christ took down his, and his garments and began to really wash the feet of his disciples. So that's the kind of servanthood. leadership, servant leadership that actually is being asked of so many too. So no matter what we do, even at home, you can be a servant father, a servant mother, in the sense that you're there to serve whatever is for the best of your children or of your spouse for that matter. Okay, moving on, there's also stewardship, I'm sorry. Stewardship is such an old concept, but it's also something that is actually now coming back to us, because this is something in spiritual stewardship, like I have written there, it's utilizing and managing all resources that God has given us or provided us for the betterment of our world in general, of ourselves, and of course of all the people closest to you, basically. So this is something that we all have been given gifts, and very different gifts, variety of gifts given to us. And whenever we receive a gift or a talent, an ability, it is for us to be able to share it with others. And if to keep it, to keep those gifts, maybe to deprive others of the kind of service and love and care and the manifestation of godliness or Christude, in our life. So when we give it, we also are Christified the more. We are also developed the more. In psychology, we speak about that. There's no such a thing as a private good. So what is good for me and what is good and not what I offer always has a return on investments on me, because I become even more. I grow out to be much more probably like gifted and much more expanded. So here we have the attitudes of Christ, yes, but at the same time, we're talking about how we can live in our world right now with all the challenges that we have to meet and face every day. And this is one of the things. The next one, number 5, is so much right now demanded of us: compassion. When we speak of compassion, many times we think about other people. But when Jesus spoke about clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, he just didn't refer to that compassion towards others, but even compassion for yourself. And this is something we're talking about. Among us, in the kind of work we do, there is what they call now compassion fatigue. And that's something that we're facing. It's that we cannot just continue giving and giving and we get fatigued. So that's why the need for self-care is important as well. But compassion has to start from within. We have practices right now, mindful self-compassion. It's important that we show compassion to ourselves, to the loved ones we have, and then compassion to other people. Sometimes, if you're great carers and caregivers, you even forget to have compassion on yourself. But that's not complete compassion until you have it within yourself. Moving forward, compassion in thoughts and feelings could also be in that way that you can be humble enough to really be, empathic and to be there to understand how people are, even if there's no material way you can help them. Understanding them, listening to them, those are all forms of compassion. And we are called upon to be this. There's not much we can do oftentimes, but to understand that even as we wear our mask, as we wear our gloves, we're also thinking that this is thinking of the other person as well, not just for my own protection. It's to protect the other person from me too, because I could be probably a symptomatic carrier. So there are a lot of manifestations of this in our life, but these are all in scriptures had been all descriptive of the Jesus that we know, the Christ that we know, and we wish to imitate. And now another aspect that you have in your definition of Christude is the radiating of love and light. This is so amazing. Look at this picture. I've chosen this because this is so uniquely Christ. We don't usually see him interacting with some people in this way, and not in that kind of light-hearted way. But this is the kind of Christ that I know I believe in, and I'm sure you also believe in. Radiating love and light. Walking in the light means that you're light-hearted. You cannot walk in the light if you're heavy-hearted most of the time. Walking the light is also you are light to other people, so that you bring joy and lightness and light and gentleness to others. So this is exactly something that you can do very well. It's so hard when you're all at home and you see each one together all the time. And it's hard to even look at something new because it's still the same day and routine day after day, day after day. But when you begin to really be there as light to one another, when it's dark, we put on the light. That is what we're saying. So hopefully, as the light of Christ too, and the light of the world, we can put on light where there is some kind of darkness. Sometimes we complain a lot about the darkness, but we don't really take it seriously. But we all have the capacity to turn on the light. And that light doesn't have to be out there. It could be actually inside of us. And the number 6 too also talks about you believe that you yourselves have become sons of light. Sons of light. And if we are sons of light, then we are also bearing light wherever we are and allowing people to also live their lives of light and love. So when we are not afraid to be loving and light-giving, we also invite people to do the same. 7 is like celebrating and witnessing the love of Christ. So this is something that you have as well in your definition of Christude. And the other day, this was the particular gospel. Who can separate us from the love of Christ? I love this passage. When we think about it in the darkest hours that we have, for example, once in a while we do go through, and to ask ourselves, am I scared that I'll be given up or somebody will give up on me? Or am I also scared that I can give up on myself? But in this, the love of Christ is such that we will never be separated from it. If we're connected with ourselves, we are connected with that God within us, we know that we'll always have something, even in the darkest hours, in a worst of days, as we say. And it's important that we celebrate this and we witness to this. First of all, it's just to believe it, even if it's so dark. We say, like, light one candle, and then we will overcome the darkness. And John, in the other passage also, is whoever lives in love lives in God and God in him. I'm sure we all memorized this, in catechism when we were young, but it's so powerful actually to live in love. God lives in us. That's basically it. Number 8 here in your Christude is responding to God's call and will. So this seems to be a very strong invitation among Joy Nostalg's family, that you constantly are responding to what God may be asking of you. And I admire the fact that you have all these programs going on throughout the year. I mean, you're so unique among so many of the companies that I know myself, because you provide. I mean, you have to be grateful that the company has provided this, because this is not coming easy to so many others. And the whole idea here is that you are constantly being led to do that, no? Because even you yourself, all of us have been called to follow Christ. And it's not like as though we leave everything and go like his disciples. We are fishers of men. So anything and any time that we are helping others to even come closer to the light, come closer to their truth, come closer to some alleviation in their life, we are actually already throwing the nets to save them from whatever, discouragement, sometimes depression, sometimes pain, injustice. So whatever it is, this is something that we can do from day to day as well. And we are invited to be so such fishers of men in the here and now. Another thing is I like to go forward now, and it's, I think, the underlying thing for Joy Nostalg, loving joyfully. Joyfully loving, or loving joyfully. And Jesus says that if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my life and my love, and then he will have joy. You will have joy in it. And oftentimes, we don't have to even look for joy. Many times you run after, we pursue, like we are constantly in pursuit of happiness and all that. But very well that when we are just loving to ourselves and others, especially those that are closest to us, joy becomes a natural consequence of that, an outcome of that. And that's a promise that God had. Christ has said that over and over again to his disciples. In Galatians, he also says that, the joy is one of the main gifts of the Spirit. So that whenever the Spirit of Christ is in us, we have the Christ attitude, naturally we'll have the fruits of, the next slide, please, Lona, will be love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, and the rest of the fruits of the Spirit and all that. Okay. So this is just my way of saying that even if this was like contemporary to us, these passages are still livable and are still things that we can practice in our day-to-day right now. And since you have put it as your attitude, this baseline core value, with this alone, you're going to be okay. Although you still have a lot of other core values, and we can go to the next page, please. I'm not going to discuss this because you have been taking it one after another. But what I'm saying is, like, all of this, there's a secret in spirituality that I'd like to share with you. When you practice one of the virtues or one of those core values, naturally, our spirit opens up to the rest. So much so that, in sainthood, they say it, we were trained in spirituality that if you just practice one of the virtues the best you can, it will follow that all the other virtues will also come as part of the training. So we don't have to say, I have to practice humility, now I practice this and that, I have to practice that, I have to live out this and that, just live joy. I think if you got the joy, that's why you have J as the first one. And even those thoughts, all that, the memories will come from the joy thing. I think you got it, if you just zero in on the joy. Because you cannot be joyful and be at the same time depressed. You cannot be joyful and at the same time be scared. You cannot be joyful and then again, at the same time, like lose your mind. If you get that as an attitude in itself, all the other core values that you have may come in easy and become livable. So with that, I'll leave this part and I'll focus a little bit now on the psychological or the psychosocial implication of what it means when we say attitude is everything. Can we turn to that page now? Everywhere that you go when it comes to human, like especially human potential, gurus and, motivational, like speakers will always say attitude is everything. I took a whole course where we spoke about attitudinal healing. I still have a course right now in the Philippines that has just attitudinal healing. The moment we heal our attitude, all the rest in our life will fall into place. Because what is attitude? It governs the way that we perceive the world. It also governs the way that we behave in the world. And it entails a whole lot more than just, thoughts and feelings and everything else. It's a compendium of all that we become. And it's like a way of life that we choose for ourselves. That's when we have this attitude, the right attitude, that it's all that we need, basically. All right, so moving forward. So moving forward to that, I'm sure you are familiar with Stephen Covey. I trained with him, just like as many of you probably trained with him. He says this, that we live in a permanent whitewater situation. We're always having problems. You're always have challenges, so to say. The only thing that is really constant is a good, positive attitude. Who are the winners? Who are the success people? Who are the achievers? Those that maintain good and positive attitude. And as Stephen Covey has been successful all his life and even after his life, right? And that's another thing that we have in Zig Ziglar. And I love Zig Ziglar because it's so simple and yet so deep. And he says this is where I got the title, your attitude, not your aptitude. So many of us maybe may not have the aptitude or the qualities that others have. But if we have the right attitude, we can even go higher than anyone who is much, much more gifted or endowed. I have a lot of clients where they are known to be so brilliant, and yet their lives are not working. So it's not a guarantee that you have a good mind. It's not a guarantee that you're getting a lot of money. You have a lot of people, people helping you, for you to even be happy or to be successful or to achieve what you want. Rather, somebody who may not have so much endowments, but yet has the right attitude could go high. And this is what actually Zig Ziglar is saying. So what is attitude? That is also our attitude. We're not just called to fly, we're called to soar. And I think, if we take it seriously, that's why if we're not living a part of our own life, which is the spirit, we couldn't imagine that we can't really soar. Even inside your home, you can soar. Even, when you're just in a cubicle right now, you can soar. Nobody can limit that. However, what is it that's preventing us many times from gaining altitude? So when our attitude is really positive, is really something that gives life to us, we just call it, for lack of a better term, positive or winning attitude. It will bring us higher in life. It makes our life lighter. So if it's lighter, then we can fly, we can soar, we can even defy gravity. If we're not having a positive attitude, usually we are way down, we're contracted, we're heavy, we're burdened. And so even if we have all the kinds of talents that are endowed or given, man or woman, we could not still really get up and soar and rise from the ashes. It is attitude that makes us actually rise up. And it's also that which is our ability to actually succeed. And when I say succeed, when I'm not only talking about financial success and all that, succeed in everything. Succeed to have a wonderful relationship with your spouse or your children. Succeed to have such a gainful, whatever else, commitment or mission in life. It succeed to be happy in the day-to-day in spite of all the challenges, So these are all for us something that is attainable if we just believe it. I'll just give you a story. It's just a brief story to illustrate how really like an attitude can really change. Even the way we talk to ourselves can change. I used to have a client and they came in here and all he could say was, hirap na hirap ako. I'm so kind of like feeling so hard. And he started talking about what is mahirap in his life. For the first 5 minutes, I was just listening to him as he was telling me how mahirap is the wife, how mahirap are the children, how mahirap to even find the right kind of people, how mahirap was it in business, how mahirap. So I started counting the many times that he has been saying mahirap. And guess how many times? In the first 5 minutes of counseling, he had, if I missed out something, I don't know, but I had like counted 27 times that he started like talking about just mahirap. So much so that when I was summarizing what he said, I said like, I could perfectly understand why life is so mahirap for you. Because that's all right now that probably you can think about. So you can imagine there. So it is coming out, the attitude comes out through the way we speak, even to think, speak to ourselves, talk to ourselves, the way we act, because even literally he was like bogged down. And this is exactly what he says. It cannot really bring us up. So not having the right attitude could definitely bring us down. So there you go. So moving forward, the power of attitude, as this is a quote, I don't know who said it, but I'm just going to say it here and you can say it with me. It says like, what's your thoughts, they lead to attitudes. And attitudes are so kind of like powerful that what's your attitudes and they lead to words. And that's exactly what I'm saying. The kind of words we say reflect our attitude. Then what's your words, they also lead to actions. And then further on, what's your actions, they become or they lead to habits. And now watch out, what you have made habitual, they become your character. And watch out, because your character will determine your destiny. So in short, if you have to call it like the shortcut here, if you connect the dots, if I have the right attitude, then I create my destiny. So whatever it is that you're creating right now and you're happy about it, then you have to say I had the right attitude. Or maybe I could even make it better. If you're not having what you believe should be your destiny or whatever you want to create in your life, then you have to really question what attitude has brought you there. Another definition of attitude, and this is Gita Davali, is like attitude is an individual's mental state. So it starts from the mind. So it's a mindset. I usually, when I teach, I have this mindset, heart set, skill set, and then of course the action set or the action steps. All the four will have to work together in an attitude. So attitude here, as it says, is more a mental state, but it's also based on beliefs and value system. And that's why it's so important that you have overemphasized, I would say emphasize and overemphasize the values that you have, the core values that you have. But together with that also is the emotion that goes with it. And I like the fact that you say You feel it, and then you think it, and you think the feeling, and you feel the thoughts, because they have to be integrated after all to become attitude. And an attitude reflects how one thinks, feels, and behaves in a given situation. So wherever you are, if you have the right attitude, there's nothing to fear, because your attitude will save the day always. It will always find a way. And this is why we need to really build on that. We really have to make sure that we have the right one. And it's something that's portable. We carry it with us. Next, please. There's another one that I'm sure you have been exposed to, John Maxwell. This is very different. He says, naman, attitude is an inward feeling. So if it's a feeling, he's more the believer that, if this is the state or emotional state you are in, this will influence everything about you. And I believe him too, because I work a lot with people in changing their thinking and feelings. And I know that many times thinking can change, but when the feelings are not in conjunction with it, it usually can still become messy after a while. But if both are there, and if the feeling is already saying, you emote it. So what can you, for example, conceive, and then you can also feel, then you know very well it becomes reality for you. Okay, that's John Maxwell. So just for a break, just take a look at this illustration. Do you know people who are like this? Just by looking at how they are behaving, you know very well. Successful people want other people to succeed. That's why they get more friends, they get more help, they get more support system. But unsuccessful people, begrudge others for their own success. So they don't want anyone else to. So when you're working for everybody else, that's why I said I love Joy Nostalg, even the spirit itself, because you're really working on building each other up. And that's so Christ-like. Building each one up. It's like adding value constantly is amazing. So that's what we call winning attitude. So let's move on, Lorna, to the next one, please. So what is it to have a winning attitude? We're almost there. Sorry, we're a little delayed, but that's winning attitude is that of someone who believes that he can succeed regardless of the circumstances. So it's not so much as the external realities that determine, because it's really where you come from. It's coming from inside out, so that the circumstances can change and we have no control over those. But this, which is coming from within, is a constant that we know we have. And if we are entrenched in that, then definitely we can face anything in our life. It's not that we are supermen and superwomen. Maybe part of even having a good attitude is to ask for help. And that's definitely not just us. We have to know what else we can engage. And your attitude today, for the next one, please, determines your success tomorrow, basically. So when are we supposed to prepare for, our tomorrow? It's in the day to day. And that's so important. That's why, in education, how I wish, and as a teacher before, I would really want to create not just, like a lot of head knowledge, but even the attitude that they have in life. Because we know that no matter what we have, if we don't have the right attitude, we still could not use the best that we may have. Okay, so successful attitude. So when we speak about success, it's not just an event. It's not even we arrive at a certain point. Success is the quality of the journey. I remember that definition a long time ago. It's how we are even in the journey. That's why it's an attitude. Even excellence is not something that, I'm excellent because I've achieved this, and that, and I can have a lineup of things in there and trophies and all to prove it. No, it's actually still an attitude. An attitude. So all of this is saying, of course, like you say, we're talking about attitude, but we have to also know what kind of attitudes that you want for yourself. There are people who really want to have we know that key people in their organizations to have the right equipment or the right, whatever qualities. And this is just simply putting it's like the ask. Attitude is number one. Skills will follow from there. And then, of course, you want more knowledge. Oftentimes, we say, oh, he has some MA, PhD, this and that, and there's lots of knowledge. And yet, if there is not much of an attitude, there's an attitude problem, all those knowledge may not really be workable many times. But it says here, first attitude, then skills, basic skills, because skills can be developed anyway. Knowledge can also be regained. So that probably is the order that it should come in. And that's the reason why I'm happy that even for those who are like, you know, in hiring, you're beginning to like defocus from the academics to more of the emotional intelligence and intuitive intelligence and, you know, like people intelligence rather than just, you know, linear logical academic intelligences. And this is precisely that, because you want good attitude, positive attitude, you know, winning attitudes to that. So as I've said, that the skills can be improved, knowledge can be improved, but attitude is a result of your own self-understanding. So this is some inner work that has to be done. And I say this because I'm in this kind of ministry or kind of mission. We are in a mission to help people to truly understand themselves such that they become very adept at having a meaningful and at the same time effective relationship with themselves. We have a saying, the primary template of all relationships in life, the primary template is the relationship you have with yourself. And so to have the right attitude, we have to have a right relationship with the self. And many times we don't even get taught how to relate with myself. But this is something that we have to teach ourselves, basically. Now you can hear a lot about self-love and self-care and whatever it is that we are promoting. I remember for 35 years or almost 40 years ago when I started talking about self-care, everybody was telling me, my God, that's so selfish. Self-love or self-loving yourself. Oh, wow, that's so selfish. You know? But right now, it is not at all. We know that when you're loving to yourself, you're caring for yourself, you actually are the most unselfish person because you're not expecting others to love you and care for you and, you know, fix you because you are the one in charge of yourself. And this is so important for us. But it's also good that we take a look and let's move a little bit forward. Leonard, please, the next, please. Let's just like take a very quick look because we need to really see what does this negative attitude or this kind of like whatever toxic attitude we have come from. It could be that it's a result of past experiences. So maybe some of us may not even have been aware that we had downloaded a lot of this from our own family or from our circles. What else? It could have been too that, you know, we had nobody that explained to us what was happening to us, and we were just like seeing that we were victims of our circumstances. What else? Next please. Poor self-worth or low self-esteem. But nobody was there to probably guide us to form a very positive or a very healthy attitude to value ourselves and to grow our self-esteem. Or it could be that we're constantly, even from childhood, exposed to too much stress and pressure. And we were not taught how to even have positive coping skills. That's why when you talk about Wellness Wednesdays and all the mastery things that you're talking about, these are really for helping us cope better. And I'm glad you have it. Because even those of us who are already helping other people, we need to stop once in a while to also do it over and over again because we could forget. It's a good thing that we have something that is regular. Frustration, anger, resentment, all of these that many times people don't even know and realize that they have. So in the kind of work that we do in the foundation, we do have, you know, like what we call interventions that help people identify these. Because it could just be true that, you know, you were born with a depression or you were born with anxiety and you didn't even know it. And you thought you had a bad attitude, but in reality, it could be that it's really springing from something that is physiological or biochemical, all that. So it's also important that we take a look at what's blocking us, because then again, we can address these things because there's nothing that cannot be addressed when it comes to the blocks that you could see in yourself. Additional blocks that we have there would be like faulty beliefs and cognitive distortions. You know, we have inputs on just like cognitive distortion and how to even like handle them. because there are a lot of them that maybe we're not even aware of, and we are seeing it around us and we're seeing it in ourselves. We don't even identify it, but they could definitely make our life really, like, more difficult. Negative attitudes, of course, and mindset and excuses. When you find yourself constantly excusing, there must be a reason to that. And if you connected that, maybe it was still way back in childhood when you were not allowed to make mistakes, or that you have to constantly like defend yourself because you were always made to feel wrong. So there are many of these things that when we're able to process them would actually help us to really develop what we call a positive or a winning attitude. So here are some of the basic steps. Let's just go a little bit faster because I know I'm like exceeding your time. We need to harness and understand our own power. It is a power. Developing a certain attitude is a power in itself. It's a very important tool that we need for life. And to choose to change or to take charge of life ourselves, we have to really be the first one to commit to developing this positive attitude. We take responsibility. How do we start? Watch our language. How do we talk to ourselves? The kind of language, the kind of words you use. I have an exercise, when I do this, for example, to some of my clients, of just changing their vocabulary. Because so many of our vocabulary words are actually creating negativities in our mind, in our energy. So we have to be careful about it. So in internal dialogue, how do you talk to yourself? If you're constantly blaming yourself, again, what did I do that again? I just don't listen to that. That kind of inner talk will definitely also affect the way you feel about yourself and therefore affect your attitude. What is it that you can identify that pushes you, and then do more of that? And if you have negative attitudes, and it's good that we own that. I have this negative attitude that I'm usually very judgmental. And so how do I do that? How do I think differently? And we have to confront certain things, such things in ourselves. And then what else? Finding our purpose and passion. I think if you can align with some of whatever you had been already given in your own company, I am sure, and I am a believer, that if you have been called to this company, actually your own purpose is somehow aligned to it. Otherwise, you would not have stayed. And if you're not aligned to the company, maybe it's best for you not to be in that company. Because it's really true. If you are honest with yourself, if you have stayed on, it's not just the money that you get, the payments that you get. You must be aligned to something in there. It's good for you to be able to see that, I'm so much in alignment. And in that way, you can even make your purpose also at the same time your passion, although the two things are separate. So be proactive. And even if you don't have the makings of the good attitude, we can always grow them. Attitudes are things, are those that we can still grow in ourselves. There's nothing that we cannot grow, we cannot develop and cultivate in ourselves. Examples would be motivating ourselves. How do we do that? We have affirmations. There are many things that we do. We have affirmations. There are many things that we actually form within our concept. There's so many ways that we can actually help ourselves, change the way we think, the manner that we kind of process things in our mind, and this can all help us. Develop humor, spiritual practice. There's so many things that we could actually have. Supportive relationships are very important. And if you cannot find it in the family, there's no such a thing that you should find all this at home. No, it's not expected of us. Sometimes, a good best friend somewhere could be the best. Or it could be, a company where you can laugh all you want. If you have a wife or a spouse who's so overly serious, you need to also be with people who are more relaxed. And you don't really have to kind of bind yourself in a relationship where that's just it. And you have to also be honest that we are not everything to those that we love, even to our families. I mean, I am basically a family, counselor myself. And I should be the last one to say that everything should be answered within the family. That's not really realistic, basically. Okay. Change, leave a legacy. What else? So there's some of the basic steps. There's so many things. They're just giving you ideas that you can come up with how to do it. I am a believer in self-care. What is it that you do on an everyday, kind of ritualistic way? It's important. And we have to do these things repeatedly so that they become part of us, second nature to us. We have to also refuel our energy and enthusiasm. I have like 5 minutes in which I just talk to myself, that I get energy. I'm almost 70, and to get my energy up, I have to talk to myself in the morning and, you know, vibrate good energy before I could even go face my first client of the day. And then the same way as like we are recharging our batteries or recharging our phones, you know, every day, we have to do that with ourselves. Self-coach through self-validation. Don't wait until people get to validate yourself. It's just like, that's why I said, you know, I promote self-clapping. I did so well today. Oh my God, I thank myself for being so patient. So you don't have to wait until people clap for you. You clap for yourself. That might be ridiculous for some, but it's a very healthy way of having a good relationship with yourself. So validating the self is important. Even if they don't think so, I believe that this is the way I should think. And I give myself validation for doing so. Self-motivate, positive languaging. If you're used to kind of like, you know, ABC is accusing, blaming, criticizing yourself, then you have to change somehow and do something like the 5 A's. Approve of yourself, appreciate yourself, accept yourself, be affectionate with yourself, and of course, affirm yourself. So there are many ways that we can actually help ourselves day to day. And then practice powerful visualization. If it's only like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you visualize what is a good state for you and what is a winning attitude for you, or what is it that you really aim at. We have to spend some time in that imagination. It's like the visualization itself. It's like the blueprint. I mean, you guys, you're building houses, you're building so many things. You first have a blueprint. We also have to make our own blueprint. And the blueprint for our life is like whatever it is that we are creating as a visualization in our mind, accompanied by our heart. Practice daily positive self-talk. This is something. Kausapin ng sarili. We have to really talk to ourselves. Before it was crazy to talk to the self, now it is prescription from us. Like, you know, it's part of therapy. And then I have mentioned that, spiritual practice, and then humor. Laugh a little bit. Watch funny movies or videos. Oh, I love YouTube. They have a lot of dogs and a lot of babies. I love those. Lighten up your life with humor. Care for yourself. I mean, you cannot give that to chance. Leave that to chance. And then more importantly, nurture loving relationship. And don't forget your relationship with yourself. I think I like just to shorten it a little bit because many of these are very already like more or less you can, if you can just go ahead, because I don't want to take more of your time. Anyway, I feel I would say that you can feel free to share whatever materials that I have made for you. So this is like attitudinal shifts that we have to start doing with ourselves, okay? Empowering ourselves. Oh, there's one thing I like just to kind of like point out in here. It says there that we are a sum of the 5 people that we usually are hanging around with. So you are the type of person, you know, that is like the average of the 5 people you are actually usually found with. So you can look around and say, who are those people that I'm usually associating with? I'm like the average of the 5 of them. So who are you? And if you want to change, of course, you know, average, you have to really like look for different circles of people as well. And you and I have the right to choose who are the most empowering, the most validating, the most value-adding people in our life and associate more and more with them. Okay. So let's move forward. I'm sorry that I'm taking so long in this, but there. I like to finish with Dennis Waitley's positive, high altitude attitudes, because he summarizes most of what we already have said. Positive self-expectancy. If you're constantly expecting the worst, you get the worst. But this is like positive self-expectancy. You already like condition your mind that, you know, today is going to be a great day for me. Today is going to be like a high energy day for me. So I'm going to do well. Even if I can make mistakes, I'm going to do the best I could. So that is like you saying that to yourself constantly. It's like a mind-setting thing, but you also accompany it with feeling that's going to be great. It raises your Attitude, it brings you to the altitude. Positive self-motivation. Who else are you expecting to motivate you? The bosses? Oh, whoa, they can, but you don't have to wait for that. Just motivate yourself. What is my burning desire? What's my compelling future? I go for that. Positive self-motivation. Third, positive self-image. You have to put yourself in a mirror where you also look kindly at yourself. Don't just notice that whatever it is that you criticize oftentimes. You have to talk to yourself also within this figure or the image in the mirror. Using, for example, vivid imagination, you can do very well. I see myself as a beautiful, kind-hearted spirit that, gives herself or himself to whatever it is. Next, please. Positive self-direction. Yeah, have goals and doable goals. So it doesn't have to be great goals every day, but I want to be able to finish my report today. Could be as simple as that. Or I want to give a call to my mama today. Or could be simple things like that. But you honor that by precisely fulfilling it. Then positive self-control. We are not able to actually have 100% control in our lives. I always say control the doable. And if you cannot, just don't be scared to self-correct. That's one of my favorite words, actually, or phrases. I can make mistakes at times, yes, but I know how to definitely self-correct. And as long as I learn the lesson and self-correct, I'm good in all that. And 6, positive self-discipline. What is discipline? It's just like responsibility and making sure that I actually repeat things that I need to learn and repeat things until they become almost like habitual to me. So that's why we say, even in the mind, we do the same thing. We have to create what we call a neural path, so that when we have the neural path in our mind, it comes in an automatic. It comes in like second nature. So but we need to repeat and repeat to be able to do that. Okay. And I have a saying actually that goes this way. Practice makes permanent. So that we keep on repeating. It's not that it gets perfect. We can't really be perfect, but yes, practice makes permanent. That's our saying. Okay. Positive self-esteem, the deep down feeling of our own worth. No one can give that to us. No one can actually give that to us. We have to be the first one to give that to ourselves. And when we're able to give it to ourselves, it's so much easier to also see it in other people and validate it in them. Okay. And then number 8 is positive self-dimension. The part of seeing ourselves as part of a total picture. We are just part of this wonderful, creation of God. So we live in the here and now as fully as we could. Sometimes it's not healthy to be so much in the future, and much less is it healthy to be living in the past. That's why when we speak about the new normal, we actually are saying, we hope that our new normal is a new, better normal, not just the normal that we thought we should, because there's no way we can go back. No way. We have to learn the lesson of history. We have to learn the lesson of what COVID has brought to us, for us to be able to create a better new normal. And that is always moving forward, okay? And we have to see that in the big picture. God must have been having something behind all of these that we are not yet able to really understand fully. I believe that, probably when we learn the lesson from here, from this, what's happening to us, then it will not repeat itself. Because life is such. No? So it's a good teacher. It keeps on repeating something until we get it. So it's best that we learn the lesson right now, so we don't really have to, get it again and again and have the patterns repeat in our lives. And 9, positive self-awareness. So what is this? We continue understanding ourselves as evolving human beings, that we're not just static, and that people are also the same. And so we can see that. We believe that we're able to develop our potentials. And if there are still so many things that we have not realized, then we have to use this. Scripture has it. What you don't use, it will be taken away from you. Talents that you and I have will be taken away from you. So I have just simply What you don't use, you lose eventually. So better use whatever we've got. And that's good attitude. And then finally here, positive self-projection. So constantly, we're not perfect and never will be, but we want to be able to self-project ourselves to the best versions of our lives. And with this, I like to give the last slide, which I already mentioned. So it's not so much like as just practice makes permanent. I just a little bit behind. Yeah, practice makes perfect is the usual saying, but what I'm just saying, practice makes permanent. So if you want a particular kind of like attitude, hopefully you can make it permanent by just having that daily and daily and daily. And you have a homework. I challenge you. Just the next slide. Take a video of yourself affirming or validating your winning attitude. And then you have that video, run it every so often. You can even change it if you wish, but I'd like you to have that kind of agreement with yourself that, yes, this is the kind of attitude that I want, and I'll be that. Thank you very much, and God bless you, everybody. And thank you for this opportunity. June, Joy, and all of you. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you.
Wow, that was a lot of applause, huh?
Was that real?
Yes, yes, yes. It was real. It was recorded.
Real recorded. Thank you, Doe. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Miss Harriet. It's a very, very complete discussion on Christude. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, June. You gave me the idea for that. I remember the first time we talked that you said, don't be scared of even using scriptures. And there's so much that actually that's available there. Thank you for that.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you again, Ms. Harriet, no, for
yes, Joy.
For a most enriching, deep, how else can I best describe it? Complete and comprehensive talk on Christude and how we can become Christ-like in heart, mind, and spirit. And also you focus also on the power of having a positive and winning attitude. No? So we do have sometimes still for a few questions. No?
Sure.
So the first question that we have, Ms. Harriet, is, you mentioned about the importance of what you bring, for example, how do other people experience you? And sometimes we know of people who are very negative and they bring a lot of negative energy in the office. Ang tawag namin dyan yung mga nega, no? And the question here is, so how do you deal with this negative vibe and negative spirit?
So if it's imbibed in the workplace, for example, there's only one way that you can defeat such, by doing more of what is positive, basically. And usually this is underlying negativity. People who have negative vibes or negative attitudes are actually, if you look at all those that I have mentioned, those are some of the blocks in their lives. And so when we look at them as people who had been blocked, and not because they are really per se evil persons, then maybe we'll have a shift in our own attitude, that instead of allowing them to affect us, we also have what the other side of what I was saying is that we can actually affect them as well. So the moment we are able to be as true to our own positive attitudes, it's just a matter of like, whatever is the more powerful vibes or powerful vibration or energy will prevail. Like good always triumphs over evil, we say that. So this is like when you hit them back, see, in the negative, like say vibration, the more that they will become defensive. Usually that's the reaction. Right? They become reactive or defensive or even counter offensive. So what are some of the ways? It could be as simple as like, you okay today? It could be as simple, even change of voice. And if they're negative, they might even like, look at you sharply and say, but they were affected by what you're saying. Okay. It just like is also the same as when, you're met with people who are just like, we call the negats, no? Actually they're the negats, no? Or what we call those that have what we call like the negative bias in life. They always see that. Underlying those might also be a story of how they became negats in their lives. So when we begin to feel for them, and that is something that you are actually practicing the Christude of being compassionate to somebody that's probably negative. Little by little, you will whittle down the whatever walls that they're building around themselves, because that's also their protective wall. They don't know. Usually negative people or people with negative energy or negative attitude are so protecting themselves because they're scared of other people as well. So the yung sinasabi, like sometimes, you know, when you see girls who are very haughty, the message that they're sending is get away from me. So that underlying that is usually like, I don't know how to deal with you, so get away from me. So that's what they project. So when we know better, because we're more comfortable with ourselves and we have more of a positive and winning attitude, then we can actually just look behind it and maybe a smile will break the ice the first time, or just even acknowledging that. Or when you have a chance, want some food? It could be graciousness, goodness, compassion, love, and joy can be at the same time very powerful in being contagious. And so this is where you can say, you can be infecting them as well. You can infect them with your positive energy. But definitely if you have a chance, and if you are talking about you on HR and it's been a repeated, it's already a pattern, I think you have to also give a feedback to the person, because that person might open up and say that maybe I need help. That might also be an entry point for them. Okay, so Joy, did that answer somehow?
Of course, Tita Harriet, thank you. Thank you for that. No? The second question that we have here is, you mentioned about having compassionate fatigue, or what we call as giving fatigue, you know? And we know very
Compassion
well.
fatigue, yes.
Yes, the compassion
Yes.
fatigue. And we know very well
Yeah.
that this MECQ was brought about by our health workers being overwhelmed by the situation and being
Yes, that's
over
true.
fatigued. You know? And that can also happen in the workplace, no? As we try to
Yes.
balance, no?
Right.
The new realities, the new normal that we have, no? Also,
Yes.
the work from home arrangement, you know, working in the office, we also struggle with fatigue, no? So how can we cope with this fatigue, no, Tita Harriet?
The first thing that really that has to be like, you have to, you know, like we say, like you have to have a contract with yourself that what can I provide for me to ensure that I do not get sucked in totally into all of this, because I need to keep above water, you're saying, like above ground, to be able to function better. And sometimes one thing that we seldom, if ever, even pay attention to when this special talking of working at home, is that you have lesser free times. And many, I know, they don't even have regular meal times, because as though they're like taking in all the time. So then you have to structure your life, make sure that you have also a space that is conducive, take time out to get out from there, do some breathers. It could just be as simple as like go under the sun, take some deep breath. It's like the self-care that you do on a day-to-day basis, more than just, you know, I take off 3 days and that's it. It's the self-care. That's why I said that the everyday self-care is very important. And part of self-care is that right from the morning, you already know which ones are you going to do. And that will also include sometimes even being able to say no to certain things, like one meeting after another every 30 minutes. Can you imagine that? So like I know that some would just say, okay, go on, but you forget that, you know, you don't even have time to go and pee and go and whatever. So you have to be able to say, no, I can't. I need my breather there. I need my recess, even in school, my recess time and all that. Make sure that you have that. And whenever you already feel that your energy is going down, stamina is down, you're getting impatient, those are already telltale signs that you're getting to the burnt out. And so compassion fatigue is more of what? Ito naman, because like these are people who usually are showing compassion, love, care, and solicitude to others. But even in the workplace, you know, now that you're all like home, there is an added challenge really, because you're not just in the office. In the office, like, you know, you have colleagues, you have like the same environment. You actually are even shielded from what's happening at home. But when you are at home, you're prey to all of that. Sometimes, your child doesn't even remember you are working from home and comes in to interrupt. So that you have to create the right schedule for you, right space for you, and then also the activities that you will involve in have to be like staggered in the sense that you can only cope with. And this is something that I'm hearing more and more among my clients who are working from home. They have a need to get out, even just get out. Doesn't have to be get out from your probably get out, like say no, like you have to block out a certain time of the day where you just can be like maybe soaking in your shower or whatever else, or just lying down and maybe just listening to music, or just whatever, walk in the garden if you have a garden. You have to have those already in place. Don't leave them to chance. So more and more we're learning, that before, okay, goodwill, like, you become available. Now more than ever before, you have to have a structure at home as well. And even the space where you are, let's say like your husband is also like, working from home, your son is like already also working. Can you imagine if you're sharing that particular like space, that you have to have what we call psychological boundaries as well. That way, and then each one will have to safeguard that this is our time for work. And so when we're here, please, it's quiet or whatever else you agree upon. You have to make such kind of, very practical contracts for working at home, basically. And self-care is a daily thing. So it has to be committed self-care on a day-to-day basis. Yes, Joy.
Okay, so thank you so much for that, Tita Harriet. No, the last question that we have here is, in a permanent whitewater world, how do we really bring the heart of Jesus Christ in the workplace?
In the workplace, like I said, though, like the best witnessing, so to say, is really you live one of the virtues that you are saying, like you already have a natural propensity to be. Like say, if you are a cheerful type of person, you're joyous and all that, then that is the kind of face of Christ. It's the kind of virtue of Christ or value of Christ that you can actually bring to the workplace. So just start with that. And like I said, when we practice one virtue, it will follow that we practice the rest of the virtues without us even noticing it. And so it will be so confusing if we are thinking of so many things at the same time. Start where you are best at. If you are the thoughtful one, sometimes it's just like a matter of remembering people's birthdays, putting in a little kind of card in there, or putting in something in there, or even now that we're working from home, be sure that you have that as a list, and part of your day is to even send greetings. That's like bringing thoughtfulness in there. It doesn't have to be extraordinary thing. And then the other side of it is also to be able to talk to people by constant, what I call always, affirmation and validation. You're creating conducive atmosphere in their workplace, and you want it to be a space where Christ can be felt, not just like talking about Christ. It's like something that you can experience, that you can go home and think that today Christ was in the form of my colleague, taking over my work while I took lunch, or today I felt the kindness of Christ, when I also was recipient of the kindness of my boss. He was probably very encouraging and very understanding. Or ikaw then, you can say at the end of the day, how have I practiced it? How did I become Christ to others? Or you can even plan it ahead of time. Like me, I always say that today my virtue is compassion. So I will have already identified how am I going to say certain words that are really compassionating to some people and every day. And if I forget to do completely, at the end of the day, I would either write little messages, whether it's text, it's messenger, or it's just like sharing something on compassion with those people. So I always fulfill it. So those are little things of living, Christ likeness in our everyday thing. And it's not to impose on ourselves so many things. And then again, later on, you can expand to, today I'll be thankful. So everybody that you meet today, thank you, I appreciate it. Oh, that's so good of you to say it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Oh, it could just be that you are a presence of Christ in that way. So it doesn't have to be extraordinary, like I said. And these are the more touching ones because people feel it and it's genuinely felt. And it's doable. It's doable. Thank you, Joy, for that question.
Okay, so thank you, Tita Harriet. And you ended with the importance of saying thank you. And so we would like to really express our gratitude to you for our spending this afternoon with us. And we'd like to honor you with a certificate of appreciation. We are awarding this to Harriet Hormillosa, PhD, as a joyful tribute and appreciation for sharing your presence and expertise with us, and for sparkling light, hope, and love in our Joy Nostalg Culture Day Mind session. May you always continue to be the light that sparkles and shines ever so bright, creating moments of happiness and memories of hope for others. Spark joy,
Yes.
moreover. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
I
so
accept
much,
it, and
Harriet.
thank you so much too. God bless everybody.
All right.